Good morning, everybody. Is it loud enough?
Yes.
Well, I was actually asking Ronnie because he's recording video. I want to welcome everybody to our 4th annual Words Are Hard event. This is a celebration of mental health. Now, real quick, before we get too far, if you have mental health, raise your hand. For the record, every hand should be up. Part of the problem that we have is we use mental health and mental illness interchangeably, but they are not the same thing. They are two sides of the same coin. And one of the goals of today is to help you have a better understanding of what mental health looks like, and not just the illness side of things, but also, more importantly, the wellness side. Physical health and mental health are very closely intertwined, and a lot of things that you need to do to take care of yourself physically also impact your health mentally. And when you are not doing well mentally, it is going to impact you physically. And when you're not doing physically, it's really going to impact you mentally. Painfully aware of this right now. It's been a long few years, and especially a long few months, which is part of the reason why this is nowhere near as organized as I had originally hoped for, especially because I figured why not change everything this year. So for every event I've ever done, there has always been an art gallery piece that is important to me because art is a big part of my personal life's journey, recovery, whatever you want to call it. And so it's always been there. Every event that I have personally organized has always had some kind of art piece. Over the years, I've gotten better at networking, or at least finding people who are like, yeah, I kind of like you, so I'll help you. And I would like to give a quick shout out to the two of the people that have really helped me get today organized and put together and kept me from being in a ball curled up under a table out in the hallway. Miss Morgan Pickens and Miss Deanna Repose Oaks. Truly and sincerely, I want to thank you both for that. And to that end, I would also like to invite Miss Morgan Pickens to come on up so she can help us get this party started.
Yes. Thank you very much. So, thank you for your introduction. I'm Morgan Pickering. So, the slide that I am here to present is the impact of illness. What exactly does it look like when we are just starting to notice that we're not right, okay? So to start off, I am someone who does have lived experience with mental health challenges. I live with severe complex PTSD. What exactly does that look like? Well, in 2016, I described 2016 through May of 2018 as my spiral. So what exactly does that mean? So in 2016, I started noticing some self-destructive behavior. And what that looked like is I went from being a full-time mother and EMT student, and I went from having a full-time job to being an absolute heathen, okay? I ended up with an employee file about 1 to 2 inches thick of insubordination, fighting, complaints, you name it, I did it. And unfortunately, my command staff, by the way, I'm an EMT, and so when I was still working at EMS, my command staff couldn't understand what was really going on with me. All they knew is that I was just angry and insufferable, and all I wanted to do was fight people. And so I became really hard to deal with. But it didn't stop at just being on the job. It happened at home as well. I was very angry all the time. I would find myself out running the streets at night instead of being at home with my kids like I should have been. And I did not have a tangible explanation for why this was happening. Someone asked me, why are you doing this? Why are you acting this way? I could not tell you. So I decided to go to therapy as kind of a half-ditch effort to mitigate some arguments. I didn't really mean it. I just, said it. And then I ended up actually in therapy. And it was my second therapeutic session that I learned for the first time at the age of 26. The first 21 years of my life was domestic violence. I had no idea. I thought everything I experienced was normal. I thought everyone experienced the same things I did, and I was none the wiser. However, when I learned of this, we talk about the stages of grief, and anger is one of them. Well, I became even more angry. And I felt that I wanted everyone else's life to burn just like I felt like mine was. So that was step one of my impacted illness. Step two is where the spiral began. In January of 2017, my father, who happened to be my primary abuser, was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. However, my father was extremely abusive and narcissistic, so this cancer diagnosis was then used to kind of mentally torture me. The same night that I learned of my father's cancer diagnosis, I witnessed the aftermath of a murder that I had personal ties with, the exact same night. In the coming months, so between February and March, I lost 3 people in my life from either the present or the past by suicide. I then began to attend so many funerals that year that I became numb. I no longer cry at funerals. I was then in a car accident that was severe enough that I should not have walked away from, but I did. I was physically and sexually assaulted while on duty, 2 separate instances. I bought a house and moved to a different part of the state. All meanwhile, I'm still angry and insufferable, and I was very hard to deal with. So all of these life changes just exacerbated these symptoms. So in November of that year, I was diagnosed with major depressive disorder, and obviously generalized anxiety, all the labels. And when I saw it on a sheet of paper, I felt immediately stigmatized. I felt immediately like, oh my gosh, I'm certifiably crazy, right? And I remember calling my best friend, and I was just like, I can't believe that I have these labels on me. I'm never going to be the same again. I'm never going to amount to anything anymore. I'm just always going to be crazy. And that was the catastrophization of the stigma of having those labels. So I then became pregnant with my last child. And so I'm going through all this stuff, including, 2 life-altering betrayals, a lot of different things in a very short amount of time. But because of this mental health challenge that I was trying to navigate, and because of these traumatic experiences that I experienced on top of it, I had that child prematurely. So let's add postpartum depression to the mix. And in Mother's Day, of all days, in 2017, I attempted to take my life, because that was the only way that I knew how to deal with it. And it wasn't that I have ever been suicidal. I have never had the ideation of I just don't want to be here. It was more of an impulsive decision, and it was, I can't do this anymore, or I just want this to stop. I could not take another chronological event in addition to everything else I was dealing with. And so I say that to say that a lot of my symptoms were very much anger. But when we talk about anger, anger is a superficial emotion. There's always something under anger. And that was betrayal. That was resentment. That was embarrassment. That was all the negative emotions that you could think of is what my anger was about. And so because I don't want to take away from anyone else's particular section in this discussion, is there anyone else that would be willing to talk about maybe some of their symptoms that they have with a mental health challenge? No? Yes?
Oh, I'll talk about it. What I heard you saying right there was, that's still, all those stigmatizing words still your identity. They're stealing your identity from you.
Yeah.
They're taking a little bit of time, and it's just like,
Yeah.
I hate that feeling.
Yeah.
Hi, my name is Sam RPA. I am a person living with schizophrenia. I'm medicated. That's a shocker. Hi, David. Can you hear me with this?
Yes.
Okay, just check. She's right. That when the impact of illness, it shatters everything. It just kind of breaks you apart. And then your world shrinks. Am I supposed to be going aside from identity into the impact of illness, or was waiting on that?
This isn't.
Life is limited, sorry. Not yet, okay. For me, schizophrenia came after my mom was hit and killed by a drunk driver in '99. Started out just like depression, anxiety, things like that. And they'll follow a pattern. My background is I have a master's in counseling and master's in developmental neurophysiology, and none of it helped when schizophrenia first hit me. Not initially, anyway. because sometimes the symptoms can be so bizarre and so unusual, you're not sure which way it's up. I mean, it starts out like, you hear it, like if you're listening on the cell phone and the sound starts cut out and you have to go silent, and that's when the voices started coming. When we moved down to Atlanta in 2001. And I had a complete psychotic break that I remember knowing of the day, because I remember Dad going to work, I was at home, and it was morning, and I remember coming back to myself, and it was like late afternoon, heading in, it's in August, so long day, and it was sundown, sun was going down, and he was begging a police officer to let him take responsibility for him. And I was thinking, what happened? Well, later on he told me, all sorts of shenanigans were going on, because I've been in caught up in divorces so much, I just lost everything. The whole day's almost erased. But let me say that no matter what your challenge comes your way is, you can find your way back. You have more strength than you possibly can imagine in most cases. People who come out of these diagnoses find they're stronger than a lot of people would ever imagine they would be. And facing the general population, much stronger. Because you're juggling everything twice. I'm going to stop right there before I go on.
Thank you very much. So yes, you're very right. Anyone who's experienced a significant amount of life, including a mental health challenge and or trauma, they are usually and statistically the best people to have when things get real. Because we have improvised, adapted, and overcame for so long.
Lots of improvisation, yes.
Right. And so I heard you touch on having an interaction with law enforcement during the mental health challenge. Okay,
yep.
Same. So the day of which I attempted, I remember that I was home alone, and this was immediately following a domestic dispute with my father. And I attempted by way of medication. And I remember calling my primary care physician, and I was like, how much more can I take of this until I'm just out? The next thing I know, the police are at my house. And a lot of things that I remember specifically about this interaction, one, as a first responder, being responded to in my own crisis, is that these officers, they weren't crisis intervention trained at all. And they didn't really know what to say. And I just want to implement that it's okay not to know what to do, and it's okay not to know what to say, but it's not okay to ignore the ability to find the answer or find a way to deal with something. So, I remember them showing up, and I was just in shrieking agony, if you could possibly imagine it. And they could see that I was suffering. But instead of holding a conversation and holding space for someone who's like literally losing their mind, it was, are you going to hang yourself? Or are you going to shoot yourself? And when I said no, they handed me a card and a phone number to Howland Rivers, and they left me there. They're like, "Brown, we've done all we can do." However, what was supposed to happen is my primary care physician, of which that I called and admitted to what I did, told them to go pick me up and take me to the ER so that I could be evaluated. But lost in translation, oh, it's a welfare check. But anyway, so that's what happened with me in my interaction. And, to kind of start a transition, all of the experiences that I've shared with you today are the basis of why I do what I do professionally. Now, sometimes when someone asks me, hey, what is it that you do? It's a very loaded question. It is a very loaded question because my passions are far and wide. And so for me, I am a crisis intervention officer for both children and adults. I work to bring trauma-informed care into the crisis response system. So looking at behaviors with mental health challenges as maybe trauma response, maybe it's a illness that we can't see rather than criminal behavior. And so my biggest passions lie with, suicide prevention, crisis intervention, harm reduction, whatever that looks like, because harm reduction is a whole spectrum. But also the decriminalization of mental health crisis. Because something as significant as a simple conversation that we're doing here today can statistically save someone's life. So with that, I'm going to transition to our next speaker.
Thank you, Morgan. This is close enough. I swear one of these days I'm going to learn how to use a microphone. Or not. Probably not. So we are going to transition in theory, to the second stage of recovery, which they refer to as life is limited. I don't like that. I call it fighting the darkness. Largely because this is from my own lived experience. This is that place where you have lost who you are. You're no longer a person. You are labeled. You're schizophrenic. You're major depressive disorder. You're whatever they decide that day. Let's see, there's borderline personality disorder, bipolar disorder, major depressive disorder, OCD. They did think schizophrenic for a little while. That was fun.
You've never been doing a psychotic feature, so I don't know about that.
Oh, I've had a psychotic break. I've had the interactions with the police where they didn't understand what was going on. I had a paramedic threaten to start a IV in my gum line because I pissed him off.
Yeah.
So that's part of the reason why I started all of this. Well, the fighting the darkness, this is really the point where it's hard to see any hope. It's this place where you are constantly getting bombarded with these negative messages, not only from the outside world, but inside your head. And to that end, I need a volunteer. Please. I will inspire somebody named Sam. Because you agreed to this originally. So come here. We're going to do a performance piece.
Sit.
Sit. Good.
I don't like it behind me.
This is going to be an illustration of what it feels like for someone who is struggling with the thoughts of self-harm and or eventually leading up to the thoughts of suicide. And so Sam's just going to sit there because these are all the internal dialogue that goes in through your head. If it gets to be too much, just check out. You're a loser. You're never going to amount to anything. Why are you such a baby? Why can't you just behave? Just grow up. Nobody wants you around. You should really just stop. You know better than this. You know that nobody really wants you around. Why don't you just get in your car and run away like you always do? You can do this. You're smart enough. So stop acting out. Stop acting like a little baby. You know what's going to help? It's helped before. Just a little cut. You've never needed stitches before. Okay, maybe you have, but you've never gone to get stitches before, so it doesn't matter. Just make sure they don't show, because when they show, then people are just going to think it's for attention seeking. So you gotta hide it. Oh, that's not working anymore, is it? Because it all was attention seeking behavior. It was all this, oh, look at me, I'm so bad, I'm so pitiful, just come take care of me. Come feel sorry for me. Why don't you just get it over with? You've got all those pills stashed up. It'd be so easy. Nobody wants you around anyway. Sure, they'll be a little upset, they'll be mostly pissed off at you, but eventually they're going to come to the realization that it was better off to not have you around, because now you're not going to be bothering them anymore. That's really what they want. Or you just run away and try to start over, but then you're just going to cause more problems. So at the end of the day, isn't it better to just swallow those pills and go away? Sorry, I just need that. Because that is my internal dialogue when I get to this place. And I am very...
Just to back you up on that, in schizophrenia, one of the main differences with schizophrenia is she has an internal dialogue, it seems like in her head. When you have schizophrenia, it sounds like the voices are coming from real places. They can walk around the room, you can't see them, this is only if you have visual, therefore the senses can be included. But if you just have the auditory, It sounds like real sim. That's the only real distinction because buying them is still part of that same process and very similar.
So here's the thing, I want to share a little bit about my last actual attempt, which is just shy of 15 years ago now. A lot of people, especially at the time, thought it was solely because I lost my pup. Now please understand that was the breaking point. He was a week shy of 19 months, not years, 19 months old. He didn't even reach his second birthday. He had gotten really sick. I kept taking him to the vet. They couldn't figure out what was going on. I take him back to the vet. They couldn't figure out what was going on. Bring him down here. Found out he had a bowel obstruction, 4 inches necrotic bowel later. They take it out. I get a few more months with him. And he seems to be doing good. And then I feed him bacon. Something that I had done numerous times before without any issues. But he ended up with pancreatitis. And he didn't survive. I cannot definitively tell you, but I know in my heart that it was around 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, June 12th of 2010 that he crossed over the rainbow bridge. And the reason that I know this is because the stupid song from Leanne Rimes, anybody who knows me knows I don't listen to country music ever. But the song lyrics, how will I live without you? How will I breathe without you? Started to play in a loop in my head. And I was watching TV and I felt this just complete despair. And so, knowing that something was off, knowing that I needed help, I got in the car and I drove to the local mental health center. No, Bill wasn't here. It was out in Colorado. And they've been shut down. I can't imagine why. But I went there and I reached out to the local crisis center, and I still remember this, because I went to the door and I buzzed on the door because it was also where their detox was. Great place, by the way. You have someone going through a psychotic break, put them in with people getting off of meth. Great idea. Right. So I went up there and I buzzed on the door, and a gentleman came out. I had never met him before. And again, for people who know me and have seen me go through serious anxiety and stress, I can't talk. I become functionally nonverbal, because I start stuttering so bad that I cannot form the words and get them out. And sometimes it gets so bad that I can't even do that. I can't even stutter because I'm so old. And that's where I was at that night. And he could sense it. He could sense something was going on. He could sense there was something wrong. And he was trying to talk to me. He was trying to get me. And I was trying to find a way to communicate with him, let him know what was going on. I couldn't speak. And then this little short woman, she may have been taller, but in my mind she was like here, so she's probably like here. And she goes, "Don't Heather, we don't have time for you. We don't have time to play your games. Go away." And then she sent him inside, told me to go away, or she was going to call the police before turning around and going in herself. And I stood there, completely defeated, walked back to my car, went home and crawled into bed. The only reason I know I actually fell asleep that night is because the next morning I got the fateful phone call from the vet. And it was a Sunday. And he called and he said, "Heather, I don't want to tell you this, especially over the phone, but I need you to come on in." By the time I got there, they already had him wrapped in his death shroud. And he handed me his body. He was only 20 pounds. But that day he felt like about 100 when I was holding him and cradling him and crying every last tear I had. And then all of a sudden, there was peace. There was a sense of relief. Because in that moment, I knew what to do. In that moment, it was clear. I handed over the lifeless corpse and said goodbye. He called my mom and left her a voicemail because she wasn't at home. Guessing she was at church with my sister. We went home. I went through the box of old drugs that I had, and I took a bottle of Klonopin, about half a bottle of Fluxerol. There was a random beer in my refrigerator, and I knew not to mix alcohol with those kinds of drugs. So I chugged as much as I could, and honestly, I'm not sure how I was able to get any of it down. And then I left my phone on the table, walked downstairs, let a neighbor know what had happened before going down to my car with the intention of driving to the river. I was going to lock my car keys and my wallet in my car so that people could take care of everything. And I was just going to jump in the river, figuring that they would knock me and it wouldn't matter. I would just float away. Well, at the last minute, I made the turn in the opposite direction and went to PetSmart. And when I got to PetSmart, the manager could tell something was off because she knew me, and she knew me fairly well, and she knew T-Bone really well, and loved him almost as much as I did. And so before she came outside, she had one of her employees call 911, came out. Now, in my mind, please understand, I remember this very clearly. Apparently, it's not what happened, but I remember it very clearly. I handed her my keys and my wallet, and I said, hey, T-Bone's gone. I need you to go clean up my apartment so my family doesn't have to worry about that. Sell all my crap off, sell off the car, pay off any outstanding debts, and then just go ahead and donate the rest to the animal shelter, humane society, whatever. And in my mind, I walked off because I was going to go finish the deed. Apparently, what actually happened is I garbled a few words and passed out. Spent the next 2 days in the ICU on a ventilator. Was told after the fact that they did an EEG to confirm I still have brain function. For those of you who are wondering, apparently yes, I do still have brain function. I question it myself at times, but apparently it does exist. And then here's the really scary part. If I had only talked to the psychiatrist in the ICU, they would have sent me home that day. The only reason, even after an attempt, that I got sent to the psych hospital is because I just couldn't talk to them. And then I spent the next 4 months in and out of the psych hospital. And most of the time they told me, oh, just stop playing games, we don't have time for this. And they ignored some of the physical issues, including the bronchitis that I got from being on the ventilator that was very close to becoming pneumonia. Because all they saw were the labels, the attention seeking, and they didn't believe me. They didn't believe that I was in pain. They didn't believe that I was struggling. And so that is what fighting the darkness is. But that's not what today is about. Well, it's part of what today is about. But today is about changing the way that we talk about mental health. And so far, it's been kind of a bummer, huh? Some pretty dark topics. Yeah, maybe just a little bit. How about we get some hope? And for that, we have Miss Deanna Raposo, who is going to come up here and share our spark of hope.
Thank you, everybody. So just to kind of recap a little bit, so my identity was stolen at 4 when I was told I was adopted and not like my brothers and sisters, and then throughout my life treated differently. I was kept a lot apart from everything else and pretty much had domestic violence my entire life. My fighting the darkness has been almost daily, especially right now. I don't know what's going on with me, but I've been in a little bit of a fighting the darkness spiral. Events like this have been helping me because I find my spark of hope in other people. It is not easy to find the spark of hope when you're wrapped in darkness. Hearing all those things that say, hey, you're on a freeway now, you can just stop the car and get out. Hey, you're on a cliff right now, just jump, it's good. I tend to listen to the world around me. There's always somebody needing help. There's always somebody that is just a little off of center in your room or in your space. And if I surround myself with people, I find that little bit and I hold on to it and I say, this is why I'm here. I'm here to make people feel differently, to see something lighter. I can't explain how to find your spark of hope, but I try to be the spark of hope for other people. I write a lot of poetry. I have a book down in the back called Don't Go Stay. my shirt, because I want people to know this. And I forget what it says. I know that it says something about being amazing and beautiful and loved. And I just try to tell people this every day. Because I never had it. And I just want other people to know that. But how do you find your spark of hope? Do you have one? Do you know one?
I find my spark of hope through a relationship with the Creator.
That's a good one. Many people do find that. I have an ongoing conversation.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have a prayer. I have an ongoing conversation.
Yeah.
And people are like, what?
Yeah.
I don't pray.
Definitely a conversation.
I do it first, yes. How do you find your spark of hope?
Art. Always art. Back there, kind of brought me in the corner.
Hi!
We're getting our 34th anniversary this year.
Oh, wow, congratulations.
So, he's got this wonderful stoicism that doesn't judge. Most of the time, I'm probably more judging than he is. That's one of my main.
Oh, that's good.
Just people around me. I agree with you on
Awesome.
that. And our animal companions, of which we have 6.
Awesome.
Cats.
Cats are awesome for that. They seem so standoffish,
They're
but
sending personality, so don't worry about it.
they know your emotions very well.
Yeah, very
Dogs
much.
do too, but
They do.
I'm partial to cats. They have this other sense. How about you?
Oh, were you asking me?
Oh, no, I skipped.
I thought you weren't, so
Yeah.
he just hit me for no reason.
No, I answer for a reason.
Do you have a spark of hope?
No, I wasn't ready to be put on the spot here. I guess I try to look for positives in things, and again, prayers help a lot.
Awesome. You want to talk?
Sure. I say charity, just giving when I can. In my faith, there's a saying that like even a smile is charity. So just like anything that you have, or just kind words, just being polite to people, and also like I do write poetry as well. So being able to harness those emotions and then share them with other people.
Exactly. Anybody else want to talk about their spark of hope? I don't know what else to say. Except that I'm going to read a poem that I wrote from my book. So this is a poem I wrote that pretty much kind of describes coming out of the darkness in a way that's kind of relatable to everybody, that I hope you enjoy. It's called Emerging from a Darkened Theater. Exiting a matinee is always disorienting. You expect it to be dark late at night, yet the sun is out shining brightly. Your brain thinks, this can't be right. Your eyes scream from the pain caused by the searing sunshine. Your first instinct is to go back in to the known place where you were fine. But your ticket is no longer valid, it's already been used. You're locked out on the sidewalk, somewhat confused. So you try to remember where you parked the car, even though your brain is looking for the moon. You wander up and down the aisles, hoping you'll find it soon. When you finally spot the car, you race to the doors. Only the car looks so different that you realize it isn't yours. 3 rows over, you find it again, this time checking the plates. Seems all is well this time around, and you're in the right place. Yet now you don't remember where the keys are, your pockets are empty. Turns out they're on your thumb, against the cup you bought with your last 20. Sitting behind the wheel, you don't know where to go. Because you can't go back from whence you came, the world's so different now, you will never be the same. So you sit in the lot and wait until the day catches up to your thoughts. The stars start shining, the moon is now up, and your brain resumes after the pause. So you have to remember that, you can go in and out of that matinee many times, but you always have to remember you can give yourself the space to heal, and you find your little spark. And for me, it's like events like this and people like you who are willing to listen and hear and share. So thank you very much. Oh, right. So now we have an open mic. Does anybody else want to come up here and share anything about their, okay, come on.
When Heather asked me to be a part of this, I knew I wanted to write some poetry, but I hadn't done it in a really long time. So I actually wrote this last night, and please excuse me for reading it because I don't know it by heart. But here it goes. Feeling so happy, young, and carefree until trauma visited me. Went from joy, fun, and play to sadness that wouldn't go away. Trying to put on a happy face, but wanting to run out of every place. Barely hanging on, hollow and empty, until I barely recognize me. Feeling a shell of myself, finally reaching out for help. I drop to my knees and I pray, God, please make it all okay. And sure enough, he started one day at a time, encouraging me to climb and to climb. Got diagnosed with a mental health condition, which I didn't know at the time became my mission. Blessings slowly started to flow until they demanded to rise up and show, allowing me to be a mother and wife, bringing meaning back to my life. I began to feel better with treatment and care. The better I felt, the more I wanted to share. I learned to assist and to support other peers who started off with some of the same scary fears. As I support them, they support me, and I begin to once again feel free. God provided a whole career helping others until they felt like my sisters and brothers. Providing news of glimmers of hope, inspiring others to learn how to cope. Using all of my wellness tools, I learned how to make my own special rules. Once again, I start to feel free, feeling closer and closer to the old me. And finally, I start to see as I work day to day on my recovery. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else? Yes. Awesome. Please welcome Morgan.
All right. So I had a friend / colleague send me some of their poetry to read on their behalf because they couldn't be here today. I also stutter when I read aloud, so just kind of ignore that. So this first poem that she sent me is called Doses. I can only handle me in doses, thinking I'd be doing the mostest, whether you friend zone or hostess, trying not to step on your toes. Facts tell me what is real and what's on your mind. Reclaiming what is mine, I'm so divine. Far from cocky, but know that I will get on your nerves. I know that at times with you I get perturbed. But it's cool as long as we're honest. Space and time is what works for us. Can only handle each other in small doses. Someone get the measuring cup. While you're at it, get the measuring tape. Because this one comes straight from the gate. Need to be in your wise consumption and be careful with your assumption. There's such thing as a healthy dosage. Mess with me and it's all she wrote. Try not to get addicted or afflicted. This beast is the sickest. Let's face it and get your dose in. Can only handle me in doses. Thinking I be doing the mostest. Whether you friend zone or hostess. Trying not to step on your toes. Facts tell me what's real and what's on your mind. Reclaiming what is mine, I am so divine. I'm far from cocky, but know that I get on your nerves. And I know that at times with you I can get perturbed. But it's cool as long as we're honest. Space and time is what works for us. We can only handle each other in doses. I can handle in small doses.
Anyone else? Okay, come on up.
This is one that's called, it's been one that's in the poem I've had for a while, but it's called Radiant. And it's about, in spite of all darkness, sometimes we still something within us. A time will come when you will wander far, and you will become lost. But you are radiant. At times you will face despair, and you will weep. But you are radiant. As you journey onward, you will stumble and you will fall. But you are radiant. Amidst desolation, you will find courage and you will rise. For you are radiant. In the forest of doubt, you will reach out and clasp the hand of hope. And you are radiant. Along this road, you will know joy and you will find love. For you are radiant. You see, you are a being of the light. And through all things, regardless, you are radiant. Ooh.
Thank you, that was good. Anybody else?
So for me, I coped a lot with my poetry, which I have since lost all of. So that is kind of a, now it's hard to deal with it because I had a lot of me was on those papers, but I did one recently. I'm not going to read it. But it's called Loneliness. It says, my life is on cruise control as I drift through each day. I see so many people in my rearview mirror as they rush to the next thing. None of them can stop. None of them can stay. They all rush around me, and I am consumed by the loneliness, the sheer and utter feeling of being alone.
Thank you very much for sharing. Heather?
God help me. I really suffer. As I told you guys earlier, I was hospitalized 4 times over the course of 4 months shortly after the attempt. The 3rd time, I got my nice little vacation. Once the hold was up, they gave me the option of extending the hold or signing myself in. And for reasons I can't quite explain, I did sign myself in, which in retrospect was kind of dumb on their part because it meant that I could sign myself out. And so one night I told them that I was ready to get out of there because quite frankly, I'm always ready to get out of there. I hate being in there. And shortly after I told them that, I got struck and I sat down and I wrote this poem as a way to explain to them what was going through my head. So bear with me because I really don't read well, especially out loud. It's okay. It's called The Maze. Lost and confused, trying to find my way through this maze, searching for the hope that seems all the craze. My mind is so jumbled and entangled, at times it feels like I'm being strangled. Strangled by my fears as I fight to hold back the tears. I don't want to die, but sometimes it's just too hard to stay alive. Yet I continue to strive in my search for hope, looking everywhere for new ways to cope. My world was shattered the day you went away, and I miss you more and more each and every day. You were my one and only, the reason I could breathe. And all I want now is for this pain to ease. They say what I'm thinking is the coward's choice, but right now it feels like I've lost my voice. Strangled by all the pain inside me, trampled by all the crap from my history. You gave my life purpose and direction. I miss all your love, kindness, and unending affection. Looking around, I can see the way things should have been, but this is done, and without you, the future feels so wrong. Looking for something, I don't know what. Doing my best to pull out of this rut. Wading through the seas of anger and confusion, trying so hard to find a solution. Hard to imagine my future without you in it. When life feels so empty while I'm stuck in this pit. Tired of fighting, losing battle in my mind. Walking through life in a suit of lead. The pain, anger, and frustration weighing me down. Looking for a way out before I drown. But all I'm seeing right now is the pain I've caused. From the anger I spewed without taking pause. To consider the ones I loved and cared about. Before I started to scream and shout. Pushed people away when I needed them to stay. Too stubborn and stupid to realize they could help me find a way. Don't understand why I put up so much resistance, when really what I seek is some assistance. I know there are those who want me to come out, who want to help me out of this mess. So maybe it's time to confess. I can't do this alone no matter how hard I've tried, but I'm afraid to let my guard down and allow myself to cry and finally say goodbye. Yeah, I can't figure out why they didn't realize I was asking for help, but just saying. This is another one that I wrote about 2 weeks, 3 weeks after the attempt. Right? It was back home. And this one's called Bright Red Screen. Trying to express the emotions bottled inside. Pressure and tension pressed beyond the extreme until finally it's let out as a bright red screen. Seeking answers only to find more confusion. Pain, anger, and frustration continue to mount. The darkness creeps in as the blood goes out. Not sure where to turn for help. Confusion crowds the mind, where there is peace to be found. Survival of the fittest, at last there is help to quiet the mind. Is found in the form of a bright red screen. Crying out for help, but no sound comes out, desperately wanting to stop. Each time is promised to be the last, but it never ends. Afraid as each cut goes a little deeper to achieve the same effect. So much pain, confusion, and frustration with no end in sight. Not sure where to turn when it seems no one can help. Fighting the beast, always coming out broken. Darkness crowds in, blood flows out. A little relief, but more disappointment. When will it, how will it, or will it ever end? Feeling so alone and scared. Just once more to prove why you're still alive. The beast always victorious even. That's how it ends. And before I end this makeover, I just want to put this out there to anyone in the room or anyone that happens to watch the video or hear the audio on the podcast later. The answer is yes, it can end. December 4th, 2021 is the last time I did it. I'm not gonna lie and say that I haven't still fought with it. I'm not gonna lie and tell you I haven't struggled with suicidal thoughts since our last attempt or even since then. But because I have an amazing support system and I have been able to build connections with some of the people in this room, and I hope to build connections with more people in this room, and I hope you all connect, because at the end of the day, that's really what it takes. We are built, as much as I hate to admit this, we are built to live in community. And when we build those connections and we learn how to build that support, and there's someone really smart in the back of the room that it has taught me about this concept of a bullseye. And so that inner bullseye, that's the people that it's going to be a really small group. Those are the people that you can turn to with anyone. And the further you go out of the bullseye, you're still connected to those people, even if they're not on the page yet. But we're all connected to each other And we need to learn how to come together and stop separating off into smaller groups and instead recognize that, yes, we're all diverse. There's nobody even identical twins, they're not exactly the same. So that we can find ways to separate out our differences, but if we celebrate those differences while coming together, coming to the middle, and finding ways to offset your challenges with their strengths, and using your strengths to offset someone else's challenges, we're going to be stronger for it. Just part of the idea behind peak puzzle pieces. Now, we have a few more minutes if anybody else wants to share, otherwise we'll take a quick 5-minute potty break.
That'd be quite great. Come back.
Can I say something?
No,
Oh,
we decided, yes.
You're done. I wasn't gonna share, so I'm not a poet. I love you. I've listened to you before. You're beautiful. I love your poetry. So I just wanted to say something, a totally different story, that seems very, I don't know, silly now listening to y'all's pain, but I came from loving parents who tried really hard, and they thought that the best thing to do for you as a child was to make you strive to reach your best, to reach your potential, with a lot of pressure. And so I had older siblings who I could never keep up with. I had, all those things and whatnot. But there was a lot of competition in my family growing up, to the point that the type A paralyzed you, and I was very successful. I made straight A's in school. I got into the best colleges. I got, obviously didn't do well emotionally, but did well in the world. And then I get out there and I can't breathe. What was wrong with me? Why, if I've had all of these, I didn't have abusive parents, if I had all these supports and all these amazing things, why am I still struggling? And I realized I never felt like I was enough. I never felt good enough, smart enough, strong enough, pretty enough, anything enough. Because it was always this push to be more, to go more, to go further. And it led to a lot of anxiety. I'm sorry, I don't know. I didn't expect to get upset with y'all. Group therapy, right? So I found this, I still haven't found it. I'm still hunting for my feeling of enough. But I did find it within the psychological community, which is why I became a therapist, and now I'm a psychologist, and I teach others' children to become therapists. But it's so interesting, this idea of not enough. Those voices that come up in your head all the time. I am not a painter. I'm a photographer. That's what I do. And I painted this painting back here one day in just a moment of breakdown after my brother, in his thoughtlessness, made a comment about, it seems like you should be much more successful. You have a PhD. Why aren't you more successful? Oh, and I'm like, your definition of success and my definition of success are different. Yours is money, mine is, building people's lives, whatever. But I felt that, and it reminded me of all those little comments when you're a kid, growing up and putting on high heels for the first time, being told you look like Miss Piggy, just little comments, right, that just stick with you your whole life. And I just felt this, and I said to my husband, I am enough. I'm enough. I'm successful enough. I'm smart enough. I'm kind enough. I am beautiful enough. I'm good enough. Who am I trying to be good enough for, right? Whose approval am I looking for? And so that changed everything. And so that painting back there meant a lot to me. It hangs in my bathroom, where every morning when I'm standing naked in front of the mirror, I can see it and remind myself, okay, you know what? I'm enough. Every day. But that was a huge turning point in my life, to say that I'm enough. I've had enough of everyone else's judgment, and I am enough. And that was, that's the word that kind of reverberates in my head every day now. This idea of enough, and you don't have to push, and you don't have to go, you don't have to prove something to someone all the time. So of course, since then, I've made your people, right? I've deliberately looked for people who see the enoughness in me,
and don't see the Miss Piggy in high heels, right? We don't see the you should be making more money. And I've deliberately pushed those other people away, a little bit. I mean, obviously, you can't get rid of family completely, but they're at a distance. And bringing in these people who support me and understand the bullseye, right? That see where I'm trying to go. I finally broke down and got my first tattoo, and the word is enough to remind myself every single day. So the reason I wanted to be a part of this, Heather, when you sent that out, was that, again, I'm not a painter, and when you said that, I thought, you know what, this painting's enough. And even though it's not fine art, it's my love in paint. And I think that was a real fear sending it to you, where people are like, oh no, other people are going to see that I'm not a good painter. Oh my gosh, And I said, no, it's enough. And I think sometimes us owning that and saying, you know what, I'm dealing with schizophrenia, I'm dealing with MDD, but you know what, I'm still a good person, and I'm still loving and kind and enough, and forget those labels, I'm enough. And that was so powerful to me. So I just wanted to share my word with you, in case that helped you.
This is a beautiful segue to where I did not clear up to this. One of the things with the Green Phoenix that I do is a monthly art class here in this very room, as a matter of fact. It's called Unleash Your Inner Artist because, as you pointed out, you don't have to have fine art that hangs in the Louvre. Or Louvre, I can never get that right. Louvre. Right, the bathroom.
Say it like you're French.
Okay, so the French bathroom. But I have some cards for everybody that's here today. It's a discount card for our next Unleash Your Inner Artist, which will be June 21st. We're going to be doing Mindful Inkscapes, which is a combination of Rorschach paintings, thank you Sam, and neurographic design. The whole idea of using mindfulness and just throwing away the idea that you're not an artist, because everybody has mental health. Everybody's an artist. And we need to start treating the refrigerator like a fine gallery again. We encourage little kids. You give a little kid a pencil and a piece of paper, or a pen and a piece of paper, and they go to town. They do it on the walls till we get a little angry about that. But we, as we get older, we start pushing that creative side down. We tell ourselves we're not good enough, we're not smart enough. And I want to argue with you on something real quick, because it doesn't matter if you didn't have the traumatic history in your past. I'm kind of thankful that you didn't, because I don't want anybody to go through some of the stuff that I've had to go through. Part of the reason why I'm doing this. But it doesn't diminish your pain. It doesn't diminish your experience. And that's one of the problems that we have, is we are constantly telling people, well, no, you haven't gone through all this stuff, or there's starving children in Africa, so why aren't you eating? Oh, that's a genetics thing, isn't it?
Yeah, that's good.
But that's kind of the point of all this. Yeah. And since somebody asked for a potty break, we're going to go ahead and take like 5 minutes, and we'll come back. We'll do the Q&A. If you're not comfortable asking questions, there are some blank cards back there that you can write down the questions for. Please engage in the artwork, because it doesn't have to be a masterpiece. Trust me, I'm special on so many levels. And if you saw some of the stuff that I did that nobody sees, but I'm learning to push past that as well. In fact, I've got other artwork if anybody's interested in seeing some of the weird stuff that I do that I didn't put out because we had to leave work. But for now, we're going to go and do the thing, and I'm going to find God.
All right, we're going to do our kind of question and answer in just a moment. So for our panelists, if they want to make their way up here, and I believe we have a poem. Am I correct on that? All right. Well, come on up and share with us. Tell me your name.
Anissa?
Anissa?
Yeah.
All right.
I'm going to sit down.
Anissa, you can sit down, and I'm going to give you a mic. There you go.
Good?
Yeah.
I got a little shaky when I'm anxious, so I'm gonna sit down. But it's about grief, and Morgan, what you said, earlier about that anger and that grief and things kind of resonated with me and it reminded me of the poem I wrote. And yeah, kind of having difficulty processing loss and heavy situations, especially when you're in that moment, and just having to kind of bear through it and not having time to process it and having that reoccurring, grief and anger and things. So this poem kind of goes through the different stages. Grief is not linear. I know this much is true. I've conquered anger and depression so many times I possess the wisdom of 1,000 reincarnates. I can recognize them in the thickest of the skies. The rageful outburst that precedes my trail of tears. The chokeback cries that warn of an unleashed wrath. They have become my armor, my allies against the true threat to my sanity. I kneel at the feet of the two-headed monster, death masking his grease-smeared face behind the glowing outstretched arms of acceptance. But I can still see the orchards wilting in the distance the moment they come in contact with the brown smog looming from his pudgy base. Or perhaps they fell victims of the repungent reek which leaks between the gaps of his rugged smile. He is the final boss, and I have no safe checkpoints. If I refuse to give him jurisdiction over my heart, he will burrow his talons into the deepest levels of my skin, rupturing nerves and blood vessels in one foul swoop. He cocks his arms back, morphing them into a slingshot as I dangle by the tip of his claws. I convulse at his readiness to fling me back to the war raging between my heart, mind, and soul, torn apart by the manifestations of my own desires. He grumbles his final warning, insinuating I have exhausted the last strand of his patience. But I have been here long enough to memorize, study, and dissect each mandate, policy, and requirement embedded within the fine print of his extensive contract. If I do not embrace the end, I will be forced to relive the beginning of my inner torment, left to grapple for another millennia before returning to the crud which veins through each gap of his toes. But perhaps it is worth a few more scars to relish in the memories of you once more. There's more.
You got one? All right. Go for it.
Good job.
Grief is not linear. It is the foster parent of stray ghosts who have not yet found their peace in paradise. They linger until the tabled affairs of the terrestrial realm are resolved. Grief walks into the room, dragging the rancid stench of death closely behind, as if it were their mud. For what would it be if not veiled by its children and hound dog? They are the very beings that classify its existence and justify its insatiable anguish which gnaws away at your bones. It is the death of a future sculpted by a tarnished image of the past. Grief is not linear. It better resembles intersecting lines, abruptly hurling you onto the crossroad between dejection and displeasure, abandoning you until you have vanquished every new emotion which spawned from the collision. It takes the form of parallel lines, seeming to extend infinitely as you pray it is at least bordered by segments. That an endpoint accompanies a strenuous start. It picks apart every piece of you that you thought you knew and hangs them on an oak tree outside of your home, taunting you with the testimony of how easily it has infiltrated your weak mind, how quickly your loyal subjects' self-certainty, ambition, and optimism abandon you when life presents its challenges. Grief is not linear. It's a process which exceeds the heart's capacity for sentiment. So instead, it comes in ocean waves, flushing over your mouth and flooding your vision with crystals of salt. It tap dances on the border of your limitations, sporadically transporting you through a whirlwind of emotions, leaving you disoriented and blurry. Grief is not linear, it's deceptive. Denial whispers broken promises of tomorrow while bargaining insists he has the connections to grant them. I veer my gaze as my lips sour at the palpable exploitation, though I am even more bitter at my fading reluctance to entertain the prospective genie and toy in his shed of wonders. For all the logic in the world cannot reason with the blissful ignorance of my heart. So I dally in the memories of you until it's satisfied, until I've received my fix for the day, until the withdrawal symptoms subside, only soothed by hallucinations, bargainings, prescription induced. As if a highly trained doctor, he has convinced me that I must wean off of you by decreasing my dosage in small increments. Unbeknownst to me, he was only increasing my tolerance. Now I see flashes of your face in anyone with similar features, so vivid and convincing for the split second it lasts, reducing me to a voyager adrift in the searing sand as figments of you blur across my vision line. Grief is not linear, it's relentless. It loosens its tight grip around your neck only to feel your body convulse when it comes creeping back. To hear the stir of gas jump from your lips when it reinstates its firm grip. It lurks in the shadows, leaving me as petrified of the light as I am of the dark. I feel flimsy, vulnerable to slip into the cracks of deception, inadequate in the face of recent consistencies. I slowly adjust to its turbulent pattern, only to be thrown off by a gentle breeze. Grief is not linear, it's repetitious. Your name is seared into my mind, multiplying and spreading like an invasive species, exceeding this planet's maximum capacity. It haunts me endlessly. I wish ghosts weren't already dead. Oh, so that I could kill them again. It is trapped in my mind, echolocating through the crevices of my cerebral folds, only to meet wrong ways and dead ends. Each syllable pounds against my skull, unavailing attempts to forge their own path to freedom. They preach that time heals, if only they knew how wrong they were. Time is bacteria seeping into my room and infecting my bloodstream. Each second which breaks through the hourglass serves as a reminder of what I have lost, amplifying my anguish. Grief is not linear. I cling to the truesome phase like a life jacket, keeping me buoyant when the splintered planks of my boat have been punctured by icebergs denser than those that sank the Titanic. The violent collision jolts every rusty bolt, creaks every rickety pilson, and frays every flimsy frame, yet somehow my tattered log manages to remain afloat. I can attribute my survival to my writing instruments. With each stroke of my pen, nagging thoughts bleed into the pages. My grievances absorbed through ink cartilages, transferred onto something that cannot feel at all, ending the cycle of emotional death. I anxiously rotate the ring on my pointer finger and dwell on how many poems, narratives, journal entries until I have fully expressed the extent of my misfortune. As I wonder if there will ever be enough words to detail the amount of parasites which eat away at my conscience, if there will ever be enough sheets to contain them all.
Thank you. All right, so we have Morgan, Heather, and Deanna up here as those that have been presenting today. So does anyone have any questions surrounding maybe some of the topics, maybe about their stories that you'd like to ask? We've got just a few minutes today, so anybody? All right, I'm going to ask questions. Heather, how do you get your hair? No, I'm just kidding.
It just grows this way.
Yeah. So, each of you shared a little bit about your journey. What has been, probably trying not to narrow this down too much, what has been one of the most significant pieces of that puzzle that's helped you get to where you are? And there is a mic. Did we test it? I don't know. There's none. No, but.
Okay. So that is a loaded question, and so there's only one part that I'll share into the puzzle piece. But one of the most monumental things for my recovery is learning that projection is real. Learning that how people treat us says way more about what they got going on than anything we've done. And I remember when I had, I call it an epiphany, It was very much a spiritual moment for me, and I don't have very many of those to share. But I quite literally remember driving down 575. I was coming back from an event, and I was going through it with somebody, and all of a sudden, I just had this moment where I was like, oh my gosh, this isn't about me. This is about them. This has nothing to do with me. And then the Rolodex of memories with the being rejected on a biological level and the narcissistic abuse and the abusive first marriage that I had, and like all of these Rolodex of memories started coming up. And I realized this had nothing to do with me. It had everything to do with them. And so now I have that lens, so when I feel, treated like crap by someone, I can objectively look at it rather than my trauma. I'm looking at it objectively rather than my trauma lens, right? So that's been one of the biggest puzzle pieces for me.
Awesome. Anyone else?
So for me, it happened in 2 stages. So my senior year in high school, we were assigned to do a application essay for colleges as part of our assignments. And part of it was we had to write down what our parents think of us and then take it home and have our parents read it and, tell us we're wrong. And my mom told me that not only was I right, but she added to it, like as if it wasn't enough. And the things in this paper were devastating. And through the process of this, my teacher read it in front of the entire class without reading it first. So she just read it thinking it was going to be good, and it ended bad. So I couldn't go to English class for months. But when I finally did go back and we were continuing to work on our application essays, I still don't know where I got the strength to do it. I did mine in a poetic form. And the teacher said, you write better in poetry than you do in like long sentences, so maybe you should just do your application essay in a poem. And my mom was reading my journals, and she was telling me how she was like, doing the whole gaslighting thing, telling me that my journals were wrong and that the feelings I had were invalid and blah, blah, blah. But when she read my poetry, she didn't know what she was reading. So I started writing all these poems out. And so over the years, I've collected them and then I've published them or whatever. Been working with my therapist over all of my trauma and everything recently. I took that piece of paper that my mom had told me how bad I was, and I took it to my therapist and I read it. And she turns to me and she says, your mom didn't argue with you. You are such a good writer that you nailed exactly how she felt about you. You knew it. You pinpointed it. You wanted her to change your mind about it, but she didn't argue with you. You saw it. You see what she thought of you, but that's not you. And you are what you write. And you write, she's been reading all my poetry forever. She's like, you see what other people see, and you feel what other people feel, and you help them. Keep doing that. And through my therapy, all I've been doing is writing poetry. So that's kind of like where I come from.
Yeah. Heather, you got anything to say, or are you good?
What was the question?
What is one thing that you can point out that's helped you?
Art. Long before I was comfortable talking to anybody, I have always been into drawing and other weird things. Being around Sam was kind of dangerous, honestly, because he tends to
Be weird and
spark weird ideas that I go out and explore and then get slightly obsessed because gay autism. But it's part of the reason why I started the Unleash Your Inner Artist series. These are all things that I've done, and I'm very hesitant when people try to describe it as art therapy, because it's not therapy, it's a wellness tool. And words are very important to me, even though they're hard. And part of the reason that they are hard is because people don't really recognize the impact that they have. And it's not always just the connotation versus the denotation. Because most people ignore the denotation and they only see the connotation and they don't recognize that those cause damage. And I hope that answered your question.
That's good. Anybody else have a question? So I got one. We'll do it. All right. So, I know we're getting shorter on time. What's one thing that you hope that those of us that are in the room can take away from this day?
I want people to take away a little bit of hope and a little bit of understanding that we all have something to give other people within the community, even if we don't know what that thing is yet. Being in the community and just sharing will help you find it.
To answer that question, what do I hope you guys take away from us being together is exploring the diversity in this room. There are so many different people in this room who have experienced so many different things, all in different ways. We have therapists in the room, we have a crisis intervention officer in the room, we have artists in the room, we have certified peer specialists in the room. When we talk about mental health and it being a spectrum, we have a spectrum of people who understand in this room. And so I think that alone shows that we're not alone.
There's a reason I had to speak up, because I need more time to think. Honestly, I think the biggest thing that I hope people take away from here is that it's okay to talk about this stuff. And there's a common trend now where people say it's okay to not be okay. And I'm not going to discount that, because it is. It's important to recognize that we don't have to be Pollyanna, or whatever the male version of Pollyanna is, which I don't think there actually is one, which is unfair. But, sorry, go to church. But there is such a thing as toxic positivity, and it's insinuation that you always have to be happy and upbeat and yay, life is great, even when everything is running around you. But on the flip side of that, and I think especially when you're first coming out of that dark place, it's okay to just be okay. Sorry, I digress easily. But it really is. It's okay to just be okay. It's okay to not be in crisis. It's okay not to be like, oh wow, this is an amazing world and I love everything and look, sunshine and puppies.
Kittens.
No puppies. But it's okay to just be in that state where maybe you don't really know what's going on. You're not really in a bad place, but you're not necessarily in the place you want to be either. You're just kind of at a state of equilibrium. And it's okay not to know what is going on in your own head. It's okay not to recognize what you feel. It's okay to reach out and talk to people. Yes, I'm talking to myself. These are all things that I have to remind myself. But I want to tell you guys too, because the whole reason that I started the Green Phoenix is because I've been through a lot of things that nobody should have to go through. I've endured a lot of, and I do not use this term loosely, medical trauma. I have endured a lot of abuse, especially by providers and police officers. And a lot of that came from them simply not recognizing and understanding what was going on and not being able to see past what they thought they saw. And I get it. I worked as a certified peer specialist until I realized, no, I don't want to work in a clinic. But I'm taking all that knowledge that I've learned and applying it here. And that's really what I hope you guys take away from this, that it's okay to feel whatever you're feeling. What's not okay is for someone else to tell you that you're not feeling what you're feeling. What's not okay is for people to try to push you further than you're ready to go. Now, I'm not saying it's not okay to push people, but you gotta kind of meet them where they're at, and if they're resisting too much, you need to take a step back. Unless you're Larry, then you need to take like 12 steps back, because you push way too much.
So what I just heard is it's okay to push you. I will be there in a few minutes.
I far exceeded my life quota of concussions, so no.
I'm just telling you what I heard. I'm just, I heard it's okay to push you. No, thank you.
Thanks for listening, Larry.
I'm good at that.
I'd like to say something.
Yeah, please.
I'm a nurse and I work in a mental health clinic, and I used to work with Heather actually in that clinic. And I come to these not just to support her, but I learn from people that are here, and I take this back to help my people. So I really appreciate the perspective of people that are going through this. It helps me learn how to help other people. So thank you.
Awesome. Anyone else? We got time for maybe 1 to 2 more questions, and then we're gonna do some drawings and get some stuff away and all kinds of fun stuff like that. Anything else? Next question. I'm going to give you one more. All right. So we're talking a lot about art. So what about the artistic process helps you in recovery or to come over to get through what you're going through? What about that process? Deanna's ready. She's ready.
I don't know what I'm feeling until I write it down. And sometimes I don't translate it very well myself. I have to have somebody else read it too to kind of say, oh, that's depression, Deanna. Maybe you should maybe we should work on that. Or this one's telling me that you're not doing so well, so maybe you should sit here for another hour. We're going to do another additional hour in addition to the one you have, because this one's telling me you're really close to doing something dumb. I don't see that when I'm in it. It's just blackness, right? But then I write it down, and it's clear to other people that know how to read it, but sometimes it's not clear to me, so that's how it helps.
Can you repeat the question?
What part of the process, the artistic process, helps you, helps you get through? What about that process helps you?
I mean, Jennifer can probably attest to this more than anybody, because she's watched me do some of these things, especially while I was preparing for the students at the school that I teach at, and trying to figure out, okay, how am I going to translate this into words that younger people or humans, she's really good at translating from Heather to human anyway, but she's also a youth pastor, so she can even further translate it to youth, which is amazing. And there have been a few times where I have been so far stuck in my head, I don't understand emotions. They're like cats. They don't make sense to me. And so especially, if anybody wants to see them, I actually have some examples of the self-portraits that I've done, where I gave people a template. I drew a basic face shape, which apparently a lot of people thought was an alien because it was too big, but whatever. And I gave one to her, and I did one myself, and the prompt, I guess is the right word, right? Mm-hmm. Was, show me how you see yourself. And two totally different. And but it gave me a chance to get it out. And then not long after that, it was actually our first Omni-Share Inner Artist series, and I had no clue what I was doing. Don't really know what I'm doing now, to be completely honest. But I was sitting there and I was trying, Micro was actually our first one, and I finally opened, I was like, guys, do you mind if I sit down and do my home? They're like, yeah, go for it. So I just sat down, and I had kind of a rough day, and I don't think. I just let it out. But another way that art has really helped me is that I am technically left-handed, but I'm also a klutz and have busted up my left shoulder so many times I've lost count. And so couple years ago, I said, you know what, I'm gonna like start using my right hand, because why wouldn't you? And actually got to a point where people look at it and they're like, that's not you're right-handed, what are you talking about? And last year I had the opportunity to do a speech about masking. And so I set up a tripod with my camera and no noise. I just started drawing a picture, and the left side of the picture was with my left hand, the right side of the picture was with my right hand, and you can watch the video. I am switching from one hand to the next in life, like, and then you look at the final image, and you can kind of tell the difference because the right side of my is where I really have to focus and hone in, kind of like talking to people one-on-one. Whereas this is more like the left hand, it's just natural, and I don't have to think about it. And Jennifer has a microphone, so I'll let her answer.
Yeah, I just wanted to add to it, because really, art, no matter what kind, whether it's music or physical art or words, poetry, whatever it is, it's always an expression of emotion. It's always the artist putting their feeling and their heart and their soul into what they're doing. And so I think that just adds to the ability to work through some things that you're going through. So that's
I'm going to back that up because I've worked with a lot of people doing art, and everyone's statement is absolutely true. And more when you're doing the art recovery, it's dismissing that hesitancy to explore. So give yourself the freedom to explore, and it may be a hindsight, maybe a foresight, maybe everything in between, but that you have your freedom. If you grant yourself that freedom to just let go. Sometimes it's just so that you don't have to think about anything at all, and your hands are moving, and there's doing things, and all of a sudden you come to some end point. You're like, oh wait, time up, what, okay. And then 3 hours have passed, but it got you through something that you might not have gotten through otherwise. Yeah. That's about the freedom. It's finding that freedom to just play. Because that's where we have our greatest freedom when we were kids. We could play and we could draw, and we had no problem just doing anything we wanted. We as adults, we always need to be able to grant ourselves to get back to that. It's important. It's transformative. Thanks.
I'm the weirdo of the room. I have no artistic ability.
Yes, you do.
That's
Yes, you do.
That's not true. That's what I thought too. I don't do the painting. I don't do the poems. I can't. No.
I like acting too.
No, like I don't. No.
We all
But I am a connoisseur. You know, I find things that really speak to me, and I can appreciate, certain things that make me feel some kind of emotion. But I just haven't been, unless you count raging as an art form, it's therapeutic, right?
Similar to dance.
Fair enough. But yeah, I'm weird. Oh, yes, thank you.
I let Foodie roll.
So I'm going to follow, that's going to be our last question for today, because we're going to be running out of time. I'm going to follow this up because Morgan and I have a little bit in common in that art like this, not for me. And Jennifer can attest, it causes me more anxiety than it does release. But here's the thing, that's fine. Everybody interacts with things differently. Jennifer can attest, we've been married almost 30 years now. What do you tell me to do if I'm just a jerk and grumpy?
Take a shower.
No.
Eat.
No, usually you tell me to go for a run. Or go grab my mountain bike and just go. And here's the thing. No matter what that looks like, and that's the reason I asked that question, it wasn't one of your questions. Because the process, there is something, everybody's got a process that they can go through to work through things. And for some it may be art. In those contexts in art, there's creativity in a lot of different things. So I'm not going to limit it. I know what you're going to say on that. But finding that thing that you can do that helps get that emotion out, that helps you process, or even just get yourself in a different state of place will help you in that.
So I am going to say something because you're wrong. art is found everywhere you look, and people will argue with me about this, but math is art.
Yeah. Math is not art.
I said math,
I know, I just was messing with you.
but the important thing is, we are all built to create.
Yes. I agree with you.
So maybe this kind of art isn't your art, but you do like to build and work on your motorcycle.
That still frustrates me. I do art differently, but that's okay. I knew what you were going to say. I just wanted to define that a little bit because we do tend to put the arts into this. So I want to we got a couple giveaways to give away, but I'm going to say one last thing, and thank you guys for doing this today. As somebody that works with a lot of different people, you heard a lot about community and a lot about doing stuff with people to help you through things that you need other people in your life. And you heard several different people mention how your mind will tell you all these different things. And those that I've worked with I'll tell you those are lies. And know that they're lies when you hear them. But here's the thing. For those of you that are helping somebody else, being there for somebody else when they're struggling, I want to give you a little bit, because we feel like we have to solve problems. And that's not it. Nobody in this room is a savior. And you don't have to, when somebody is coming and just dumping on you, you don't need answers. Actually, your answers are probably the worst thing you can do. What you need to do is just sit and listen, and then work with them to just go through what they're going through, walking with them through it. There may be times where you have little nudges along the way, but I never tell, and they can tell, I never tell anybody what to do. I will always walk with them. I'll walk through possibilities with them, but I never tell anybody what to do. We're not saviors. And that's the one thing, because when we're working with people, we need to remember that whether you've gone through it or not, and I'm going to give another thing for those of us that have the stories, and everybody has a story. Sometimes your story isn't what needs to be told. Sometimes you just need to listen. And listening means, when you hear something that reminds you of your own story, sometimes you just need to let that sit so they can get their story out. And then there may be an appropriate time. I just want to encourage you guys in that, because doing community together, sometimes we feel like we have to solve everybody's problems. And we don't. You have one more thing you wanted to say? You're just holding the mic, so I just want to make sure. All right. Cool. Our first giveaway, where's that little envelope? Okay, Jennifer, you got the envelope? Well, the first giveaway is going to be to Kimberly Watkins.
Excellent.
All right. Copy of a world famous artist, book, and money. Well, I guess certificate. All right, second one. Ooh, Naomi. Ooh, you won the second one. All right, Naomi. Now, Naomi, you haven't talked all the time, so now you've got to sing. Okay, never mind.
I got the wheels of the bus.
All right, there you go. And then, if you would, we have something for Heather today. So if you would go ahead and grab that.
She already gave me my fiance's hideout.
I gave it.
I know, that's what I said.
Yeah, just really quickly, I know sometimes we shy away from acknowledgement. However, I would like, I'm sure there's many people in the room that would also like to acknowledge you on putting this event together, the blood, sweat, and tears that went into it, and, as well as, the people who work alongside you. But it was in the birthplace of your mind to start off with. And I just want to acknowledge you and say, it was very, very powerful, and I hope and pray that it continues. This is the fourth, and may we see at least 50. Okay, all right. So, here you go, Heather. Thank you.
All right. Really appreciate everybody being here. And you got a couple things. You can always go to Heather's website. There's cards for the classes that she's doing. Also, I want to let you know, this is Mental Health Awareness Month. We know we do another one in September that's around suicide, because that's Suicide Awareness Month, and we do a lot of conversations and have people like this that are on there and professionals that help kind of talk about all the different angles that surround suicide, how we can help somebody that's struggling and what to do maybe if we're struggling, and have that entire conversation. It's going to be September 13th at the Ben Robertson Community Center. We'll have more details on that later. So just keep that in mind. Again, thank you guys for coming, and everybody that brought your art. Amazing. Have a great Saturday.